What if your first home could pay for itself? That's what we're going to be talking about today. This video is going to be all about house hacking and what that looks like in the Kansas City real estate market. For those who don't know me, my name is Krishan Harris. I am a real estate agent in the Kansas City area. I help people on the Kansas and Missouri side with buying and selling houses as well as investing in real estate. So I want to talk to you about house hacking. So first, what is house hacking? So in its simplest terms, it's when you buy a property that you plan to live in. That's a key part, is you plan on living in the property. And you also are planning to generate income somehow from this property that's going to help you pay that mortgage. That's really, in the simplest terms, what house hacking means. Now, let me give you some real examples of what people in the Kansas City market do when they're trying to house hack. So one of the most talked about ways that people house hack is where you buy a duplex or a fourplex. It has to be between 2 and 4 units, but a multifamily property. Anything over 4 units is actually considered commercial and not residential, and it requires a different loan. But you buy one of these properties, you put the minimum down payment down, and then you rent out the other units. And the reason why this is really appealing is because you get into a multifamily property without having to put 20% down. You can do it with the VA loan and do 0% down. You can do it with an FHA loan and do 3.5% down, or a conventional and do between 3 and 5% down. So you're saving a lot of money on the down payment and getting a better interest rate on a property you're going to occupy and live in. The other benefit of it is when you're buying a property that's multifamily, the lenders can actually use some of the rental income that they project the property is going to bring in to help you qualify. So I'll give you an example. To preface that, I am not a mortgage lender, so your experience with mortgage lenders and what this looks like is going to be different, but I'm going to give you just a rough example. Let's say you're buying a property that has 4 units. You're going to live in one of the units and then you're going to rent the other 3 units out. Lenders can typically use 75%, whatever. So let's say the entire building can total rent for $4,000 a month. They can usually add $3,000 to your income to help you qualify for whatever that property is. People like this setup because, like I said, you get into a multifamily property with a lower down payment and you can use the rental income to help you qualify. The downside of this is that you're going to have a much higher loan and a much higher property cost because you're buying multifamily and not single family. The other thing is you're going to have more maintenance with the property because you're going to have multiple refrigerators, multiple ACs, multiple furnaces, water heaters. Everything that you have in a single family house, you're going to have between 2 and 4 times that. The next type of setup that I see pretty common, depending on how the property is built, is to do a basement suite. So then this type really excites me. It's where a property has a finished basement. Lots of times people will go in and they'll add a full kitchen and a bedroom, and they'll really, make this an entire space. They're often called mother-in-law suites, but what I'm seeing a lot of my clients do now, I actually have a client that he has a property with a finished basement that he will live in with him and his wife, and then he'll rent the upstairs out on Airbnb to generate income. I've seen people do the reverse, where they live in the main floor of the house and then they rent out the basement to generate some extra income. Another setup that I see is people will buy a property, let's say a 3 or 4 bedroom house, and it's just them. They'll get roommates to help them with making the payment. Now, the downside to this is that you have to qualify on your income alone if you're going to be the only one on the mortgage application. So if you're having roommates and they're not on the loan or on the title and they're just going to be paying you rent every month to help you pay your payment, you still have to qualify on your own income. So it's going to limit you on what you end up buying. Another downside of this strategy is that because you're going to have roommates, you're going to be sharing your entire home with someone else who's living in the house, whereas some of the other setups like the basement suite and the multifamily properties, you will have more privacy. So this one gives you the least amount of privacy. It also gives you the least amount of maintenance because you're only going to have 1 AC, 1 furnace, 1 fridge, washer, dryer, all that. You're not going to have double to quadruple of all this stuff. And so, your maintenance and holding costs are going to be a lot lower. And chances are, because you're only qualifying on your income alone, if there is a vacancy for some reason, chances are you're going to be in a better position to be able to make that payment because it's based off your income alone. versus on one of the multifamily properties, it's going to be more important to have reserves to be able to make that payment if something happens with one of the tenants. And let's talk about financing. So financing is a big factor in being able to make this work. So like I mentioned, there's a FHA, conventional, and VA loan. Those are like the most common loan types that I work with. And really, if you're doing this strategy, that's the kind of loan that you want to get because you're going to get the most benefits out of it, like a better interest rate and a lower down payment. If you're doing a multifamily property, when you buy the property, they're going to have it appraised not only for the value of the house, but how much rent that property can produce. And lenders are allowed to use a certain percentage of whatever the rent is total to help you add that to your income to qualify. If your property is a single family house and you're going to live in it, they can't use any income it's going to produce to help you pay. So you will have to qualify for the property on your own. Now let's talk about some realistic expectations with this. So if you're buying a property that has 3 to 4 units, you usually have a better chance of all the rental income covering your entire mortgage. If you're buying a duplex, most of my clients that buy duplexes, usually it covers somewhere between 50 and 70% of their mortgage, but it usually won't cover their entire mortgage payment. With the basement suite situation, I've seen clients where if they're the ones living in the basement and they're renting the main part of the house out, that will usually cover their entire mortgage, sometimes even more. So you will have some cash flow. If it's the reverse, usually I see that they're getting anywhere between 30 and 50 to 60% of whatever their mortgage is. So it's going to bring in some extra money, but it's not going to cover your whole mortgage. With roommates, I have seen where if you get a 3 or 4 bedroom house and you're getting 2 or 3 roommates, that can sometimes cover your entire mortgage, or it can cover, let's say, between 60 and 80% of your mortgage. But like I said, all these strategies are really nice because you get to live in a property, you get to build equity in the property. The property is going to go up in value while the loan is getting paid down, and you're not responsible for paying that entire payment yourself. You're generating income to help pay that payment down. So that's really the benefit of all this. The good news about Kansas City is that we are one of the more affordable markets in the US. And so, it is very possible, depending on where you want to live and what school district you want to live in, to be able to get into a 3 or 4 bedroom house in the $200,000 to $300,000 price range, depending on where you want to be at. Multifamily, most of my clients are spending in the high 200s or $300,000 price point to get into the duplex. Sometimes even more depending on where the property's at. And usually anything that has 3 or 4 units, you're gonna be spending, I would say the lowest you can expect is $400,000, and that property might need some work. I hope you found that helpful. I'm really passionate about helping people buy homes and build wealth and stability through real estate. And so if you are considering house hacking, considering buying a home, or know somebody that is, I would love it if you would give me a call or send me a text or an email. I'm always open to having those conversations with you and consulting with you and really just figuring out the best plan for you on how we're going to make that happen. See ya.